Okay, now we are going to deal with solving absolute value equations and learn about how to solve these type of equations. First, let's do a review of definition of the absolute value. So absolute value of x basically will give a positive answer all the time. It just looks at the quantity, the magnitude of the value that is inside. So, and in algebraic kind of a language, this is the definition right here that we have. So if it turns out that x is positive, then the answer will be itself. But if it turns out that x is negative, then to get a positive value, we have to multiply the negative value inside. That makes it a negative times a negative. The answer, the final answer, will be positive. So these two, x and minus x, they are both will end up being positive value. Okay, so as an example, just quickly, remember, if it was absolute value of 2, we got 2. Very easy. But if it turns out that absolute value of minus 2 we are dealing with, we have to get 2. But to get 2 out of the absolute value of minus 2, we have to multiply negative 2 by negative 1. And that's where this sign, the negative x, comes from. Okay, so that's what that means. So if it's a negative value inside the absolute value, then we have to multiply it by negative to make it positive. And these are the two possible cases. And to solve an equation, absolute value equation, we need to consider both of these two cases. So let's go ahead and start with a simple example. Okay, absolute value of x equals 2. We need to come up with all values of x that will make this equation true. All right, what are the possible answers? So the first answer will be x could be 2 because absolute value of 2 is 2. But according to the second case, which is right here, that's our second case, if it turns out that x is negative, so let's say that's negative 2, then the quantity of that, the absolute value of negative 2, will also give you 2. So these are two answers that you will get for this absolute value equation. And usually you do get two possible answers. Okay? Check the answers. Yes, you always check and make sure that that's correct. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, let's look at another simple one. Now we're going to go ahead, and this time notice that the term inside the absolute value, 2 terms in there, so we have to deal with both. Now it's just not simple enough to just say x is that right away, the positive value or negative value. We have to go through and write the cases. So here are the two cases we're going to write. Case 1 is that absolute value of x minus 1 will be equal to just absolute value or just x minus 1 if, and we are thinking that when x minus 1 is greater than 0. That means if this thing, this x minus 1 is positive, then we just take x minus 1 outside of the absolute value, and that becomes x minus 1 just on its own without absolute value. We now go ahead and solve the equation x minus 1 equal to 0. The first answer will be x minus 1. Now the second case, so that was case 1. Case 2 is that absolute value of x minus 1 will be negative x minus 1. That is, if we have x minus 1 less than 0, because, and then we are basically, what we're saying is that what if the value of x minus 1 is a negative value? The first part was positive value. All right, now if that is the case, let's write the equation for that. So that would be negative x minus 1, set that equal to 0, and now we're going to go ahead and solve this. Let's do the distribution and then solve for x. So the answer to this question, if we check our answers, they're both the same. right? X equals to 1, x equals to 1, both of them the same. When we check, is absolute value of 1 minus 1, is that equal to 0? Yes, it is. Okay, so that's what we are doing. We are taking both cases and we check for both positive and negative value inside of the absolute value, and then we're going to go through the process and solve the equation. All right, let's do another one. Okay, so this is the equation, x plus 3 absolute value equals to 5, or absolute x plus 3 equal to 5. So first time now we're going to do case 1, we take the positive. That means the inside here, we're going to assume that's positive, and if it is positive, then just inside comes out of the absolute value, becomes x plus 3, and then we're going to set it equal to 5, and just simple as that. So basically the positive case is that you just take what is inside of the absolute value, you bring it out, that's all you do, and then set up the equation and then solve. To solve that, you'll notice that the answer will be x equals to 2. Great. Now case 2, you're taking the negative case. That means, what if the inside x plus 3 is negative? And if it is negative, then you will get negative outside of the x plus 3. So the first case was the positive, which is itself. The next one will be you have to multiply the inside by negative completely and set that equals to 5. Okay? And then you solve again. Minus x minus 3 equals to 5. And then you go through solving that, and x equals to negative 8. All right, once you get that, you need to check. And by checking means that you plug the numbers back in, and then you see if that is correct. So first of all, is 2 plus 3, absolute value of that, is that equal to 5? Yes, it is. Next one is minus 8 plus 3, absolute value of that, is that equal to 5? Sure it is, because this is minus 5, absolute value of minus 5 is 5. Okay, simple as that. Okay, here is another example of absolute value equation. In this case, we have absolute value term one side, the other side is just a linear term. It doesn't really matter. We're going to follow the both cases and then come up with a solution. So let's go ahead and do the cases. All right, so case 1, we take the positive, whatever the inside the absolute value is, it comes out on its own, nothing else changes, x minus 4, and set it equal to 3x plus 1. And then from this point on, you just have to go ahead and just solve this linear equation. So basically isolate x's to put it on one side and then solve for x, and I end up getting minus 5 over 2. So that's the first answer we got. Okay, and the next one will be case 2. We'll take the negative case, negative value of the inside absolute value. Okay, when in case 2, when you're taking the negative case, so the inside x minus 4 has to be negative, so put a negative in front and then solve that equation. Now notice that I didn't put negative for both, just one side. Okay, in some texts and maybe some teachers, they say, okay, just choose the right hand side of that equation, set that equal to negative, whatever that is. That's okay, not a big deal. But this way, I like it this way based on the 20 years of experience. Students follow this pattern a little bit better, at least my opinion, but that's okay, whatever works out, just follow that process. All right, when you solve this, you get x equals 3/4, x equals to negative 5 over 2. In both cases, you must check, always check. Now here's the thing, if you check and the answer doesn't work, you need to reject that answer. So if it turns out that it works, great. If it doesn't work, either one of them, then you reject it. If it turns out that neither one of them is working, then this equation doesn't have a solution. All right, just check, and that's it. So now we're going to test and check if the solutions that we got for this absolute value equation is actually working. So first one was x equal to negative 5 over 2 when we started from the top right here. That was it. And the next one is x equal to 3/4. So we're going to test each one of them as I mentioned. So let's check. And what I did, I plug in negative 5 over 2 inside of the absolute value expression, an equation for on both sides. So x here and x there. So negative 5 over 2, you go through it, and you want to show if that the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side. And when you do the math, and you have to do the math, there's a little bit of algebra involved in terms of fractions. So when you do the math, you notice that on the left-hand side, you get 6/2 because absolute value of a negative number. This is negative 6.5 or 6 and 1/2 is positive 6 and 1/2 or 6.5. But the right-hand side, notice that is when you do the negative 15/2 plus 1, that is actually negative 6.5 or negative 6.5. Well, a positive number is not equal to a negative number. So in this case, we know that this is not equal to each other. Therefore, this is not a solution. You have to reject this solution. Okay, so that's the first one. Now let's go check the next one. X equals to 3/4. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to plug it back into the original equation. This is the absolute value equation. Left hand side and right hand side is linear. We'll replace X by 3/4. Here we go, 3/4 for values of X on both sides. We do the math in here, and when you do the math, and I did that for you, you can pause the video and go over it again a step at a time. Again, fractions involved, but that's okay. Don't be worried. Just go through it a step at a time. And you notice that the left-hand side becomes negative 3 1/4. The right-hand side is 3 1/4 positive, but the absolute value of a negative 3 1/4 or 3.25 is positive. Okay, so it has positive and that's positive. So both of these values are equal to each other, and therefore the only solution for this equation is x equal to 3 1/4. All right, hope this helped you. If it did, like, comment, and subscribe for more videos from Math Support. Okay, be well.